Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the I See Old People podcast. I'm Dr. Bruce, your host. Today is July 14th, 2026, and it is very, very hot out today. It has been hot for the last couple of weeks, although I broadcast from Norfolk County, which is in southern Ontario, and a lot of people in the world think of Canada as quite a cold and barren place. In southern Ontario, we actually jut down into the continental United States. It's like a little peninsula that goes down towards Detroit. So on one side of that peninsula is Buffalo, New York, and on the other side of that peninsula is Detroit, Michigan. And on the Canadian side is southwestern Ontario. And Norfolk County is a farming area in southwestern Ontario. And today it's 90 degrees out. With a humidex, it feels like 109 Fahrenheit. For my international listeners, that's 32 degrees Celsius, or it feels like 43 degrees Celsius today when you go outside. And that sun is hot. It is penetrating. It feels like a laser beam. The last time I felt the sun feel as hot as it feels today was when I was in Thailand in April. I can't even imagine what Thailand in July must be like. So, anyway, we'll get talking about what our topic is today. And our topic today is coffee. I want to talk to you about coffee, my favorite drink in the world. I wake up every morning, I have two big cups of black coffee. I always have black coffee in the morning because I do intermittent fasting, so I don't consume any calories from 9 p.m. at night until 11 o'clock in the morning till noon, 1, depending, sometime in there. The more bored I am, the earlier I seem to eat. The more busy I am, the later I go ahead and eat and break my fast. So I have black coffee, two big cups every morning. If I have coffee later in the day, I'll often have it with cream. I enjoy cappuccino. I enjoy nice coffee. I just enjoy coffee in general. So in the last little while, I've become concerned that every time I turn around, I'm reading another negative article about coffee. It's just really shocking. In the last 3 months, now you got to think about what coffee is. A coffee is the third most consumed beverage in the world. Okay, so number one is water. Of course, water is the most consumed beverage in the world, if you want to call it a beverage. I mean, it's the essence of life, water. So every human being needs to drink it. So it is by far the most commonly drank liquid in the world. And after that, it's tea. Tea is big because a lot of the very heavily populated Oriental countries and the heavily populated Arab countries, they all drink tea. So lots of people in the world drink tea. England drinks tea, a lot of tea drinkers. But number two is coffee. And coffee is number one in North America. Coffee is number one in the Caribbean, number one in South America. So coffee is a huge drink. It's drank all over the world. It's been drunk for many, many years. I should have looked that up. I don't know how long we've been drinking coffee, but coffee's been part of the identity of humanity for a very, very long time. When I was researching coffee, I was kind of surprised where coffee comes from in general. There's about 70 countries that grow coffee, but the big exporters, the ones that send their beans all over the world and are well known as exporters of coffee, number one is Brazil, and Brazil has almost half of the international market for coffee. So Brazil's number one. And I was really surprised by number two. I would have never guessed Vietnam. Vietnam is the number two exporter of coffee beans in the world. They have 18% of the market share. And then all of the rest of those countries make up that last third of the market share. Colombia is a big one. All of it's called the coffee belt down through the Caribbean. Puerto Rico, Dominican, Cuba, they all grow coffee beans, but often not enough to export. Like I always enjoy Dominican coffee when I'm in the Dominican Republic, but you'll never be able to find it here unless you're in a specialty store. They just don't make it. They don't grow enough of it to export it. So the last 3 months, every time I turn around, I'm reading another negative article about coffee. And then the other day, just like 2 days ago, I am listening to this fellow that I often follow. His name's Dr. Berg, and he talks a lot about pelvic floor exercises. I've always had a problem with night urination and urgency. It's been an issue for the last 15 years of my life. So I started following him because he had some good natural tips on how to try to control that. So most of them are just like kind of male Kegel exercises where you're kind of squeezing your pelvic muscles and you're trying to make your pelvic muscles stronger. So anyway, I listen to him. I like him. He's a great guy. So then I'm listening to him the other day, and he's talking about how coffee causes weakness in the big muscle that surrounds the bladder. Number one, big coffee, and then there's all these other reasons, but coffee's right up there. And it was like kind of the straw that broke the camel's back because I thought to myself, this just isn't right. Something's going on here. So I asked the smartest guy in the room, uh, AI, Google AI, Gemini. I asked Mr. Gemini, what's going on? Like, why is coffee all of a sudden the worst thing in the world? And his answer was really interesting, okay, because the answer made so much sense to me. It said, it basically said it's a completely consumer market driven campaign that started in the fall or started in the early spring. And the reason is they're trying to push non-coffee beverages. So companies want you to stop drinking coffee and drink their beverages, whether it be soda pop or Red Bull or McDonald's Slurpees or Wendy's slushies, whatever it is. They want you to stop drinking coffee and they want you to drink these other products. And this has been done by using influencers like Dr. Berg and many, many others, so that as you're going through your normal day, you're looking at social media and on your feed, you're getting this negative vibe about coffee constantly. And this whole thing is orchestrated to get you to try all these other drinks. So I found that very devious. I found that very negative way to go about it. I felt betrayed and I felt that it was very insidious. I didn't not like this idea at all. Like if McDonald's wants me to drink their drink, they could put up a big ad, a big billboard, an ad in the newspaper, an ad on social media that said, hey, why not give this a try? Put the coffee aside, try something new. At least you know that that's the company that is trying to get you to drink their product and trying to get you to put your coffee down. But this way of using influencers to demonize coffee and make you think coffee's bad, so just so you will go and try these other drinks, is really insidious, and I think it's a really negative way to advertise. It got me thinking about how many other things are fed to us like this. Like just after that, maybe the next day, I'm listening to someone else that I follow. I follow a lot of these guys that cook and make dishes, and they're creative in their culinary skills. And this guy's talking about how negative uh, iron pans are, cast iron pans are. I mean, I grew up with cast iron pans. Cast iron pans have been around forever. We use it. We have two sizes of cast iron pans in our house that we use constantly. And he's talking about chemicals leaching and how bad it is and everything. And the first thing I thought was, this is just like the coffee thing. This guy's probably being paid by, Big Teflon. And, the Big Teflon Corporation is telling him to go out there and tell people the cast iron pots are bad. And how many other things is that going on in? And I think it's many, many things. So I was very concerned about that. I think that we really, really have to be careful. Now we've got AI out there, and AI can start to, they know which buttons to press and how to get you emotional and things to say. So all of a sudden, we're going to have these robotic scripts that are going to convince us that the life that we are leading is wrong, and then therefore we have to try to lead our life in this way, which is some way that somebody is making money. So it's a brave new world, and it's not a nice one. I'm not very happy about that. So I'm going to continue to drink my coffee and enjoy my coffee like I have for. I've probably been drinking. I'm 66 years old. I've probably been drinking coffee for 51 years or 52 years, and enjoying it, and I will continue to enjoy it. And I'll just have to remember this as far as advertising has changed, where they use influencers now, and it isn't an influencer that's like coming on and saying, "Hey, I really like this product. I love this orange fresh drink that I drank at McDonald's." No, no. They're saying, "Hey, coffee is bad. It's destroying your health. You need to stop drinking coffee." And it just makes sense because coffee is the number two beverage in the world after tea. And so it's a big market that they want to get into. I just find it's a really negative way to do it. There's my little rant about coffee. So if you enjoy your coffee, I'm not an influencer by any means, by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm going to tell you right now, enjoy your coffee. Enjoy it any way you like. Put cream, put sugar, put milk, cappuccino, espresso, any way you want to do it. So the other thing I want to talk about today was about Canadian values. You know, we're in a time where there's a lot of upheaval within our country. We had over 3.5 million newcomers come into our country in the last 5 years. So our population went from 35 million people to over 40 million people in a very, very short period of time. So things are changing very, very quickly in Canada. I think like what are some core values about being Canadian? Like what's it mean? Like, people say like hockey and maple syrup, things like that. But those are just Canadian icons, Canadian ideas, Canadian activities. It's not like a cultural value. So I thought, what's the most important cultural value to me? To me as a person who's lived as a Canadian for 66 years and love this country and want it to be a great country, want to continue to be a great country. So I think that the most spectacular value that Canadians share is our ability to travel freely throughout our country. We can travel. Canada is a vast country, I believe 5,500 miles wide. It goes from Newfoundland to British Columbia, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. It's the second largest country in the world after Russia, and I can travel anywhere in the country, and I can do that freely. I don't have to tell anyone I'm going anywhere. I don't have to register. I don't have to show papers. I don't have to show identification. I can travel anywhere in this giant, vast country. I can go into any city. I can go into any part of any city. That's when I hear things about these no-go zones in cities in Europe where certain groups have stopped people from going into there. So you'd have to prove that you are part of a group to go into these no-go zones, okay? Or in the Middle East where, to get through certain parts of Beirut, you have to show identification. You have to be from a certain religious sect to go into those areas. So this type of thing, or in China where you have to show identification, it's all they do it now just looking at their face and doing biometric identification. So they're doing biometric identification when you move from zone to zone within a city. And if your credit score is low and you're not supposed to travel to that part of the city, there's barriers there, and the barriers are already built. So that's China. And I think that is such an affront, such a complete affront to Canadian values, because Canadian values do not include this type of restriction in travel. That's why I was so hurt as a Canadian. I was so depressed and I was so broken when the COVID problem came into being back 5 years ago. And our country chose to put in vaccine passports that restricted us from traveling. They stopped us from traveling interprovincially. They stopped us from traveling so many kilometers from our home. They tracked us illegally without telling us they were tracking us. They tracked us. They put out a vaccine passport, a vaccine card that you had to show people to get into establishments, to move, to go to recreational areas, to go to sporting events. It was absolutely the worst thing, and the absolute crushing of Canadian values. What I feel is the number one value of a Canadian is my ability to travel freely throughout my country. The United States has the very same thing. Of course, there's a border between Canada and the United States, and I have to show identification. I have to have a passport to cross that border. But once I'm in the United States, I can go anywhere in the United States. I can go to any state. I can go to any city. I can do anything I choose to do without the government knowing about it, without having to inform the government of it. And that is the freedom to travel that I think is so basic and so important. I was absolutely crushed, and I refused to get a vaccine passport. I refused to take the vaccine. My family refused to take the vaccine. Thank God for that, because we all know how dangerous and how deadly that vaccine was. Of course, it's hindsight now. Nobody knew at the time, but I knew that it wasn't tested properly. I knew that there were possible dangers with it, and there was no way that I was going to expose myself or my family to it. So, so yeah, I was not even eligible to get one of those passports, let alone would I take one of those passports to use to show my papers to be able to move about my country. Something that happened back when the trucker convoy came, and you might remember an episode I did called "The Truckers Are Coming." The truckers are coming, and I was so thrilled because the truckers actually saved us from the vaccine passport. Okay, when history is told properly in the future, and it's all said and done, and the people who did this to us pay the price that they should, the truckers are the ones that actually freed us, because Canada stood together and said, we will not do this. We will not show papers to move about our country. And it was just a fantastic time. It was a February to remember, the day the truckers all came to Ottawa. How they were crushed showed us how the government control and the government what the government can do to you when you resist them. But we did resist them, and we did stop those vaccine passports. But the blueprint is there so that they could be done again. And that really has to be stopped. Somehow we have to stop it from ever happening again. I believe it caused a fracture in our country that may never be healed. It still exists now 5 years later, and it may never heal, that fracture. When I was talking about the truckers coming, I mentioned it to my brother. I have a brother. He had a head injury when he was in his early 30s, and he's quite active. He has quite a good ability to think for himself. But in this situation, he really was listening to a lot of the propaganda that was being fed to the Canadian people by the government. So I was talking to him about that, we'd gone up to support the truckers. We went up to the highway overpass, and we all cheered and waved as they crossed by our area on the way to Ottawa. He said that they were terrorists, and he slammed the phone down on me and said, "Don't call him again." He was so angry with me for supporting the truckers. So I wrote him this letter, and I just want to read you this letter, because I think it really speaks to how I thought at that moment 5 years ago and how I still feel today. So dear brother, I was really upset when we ended our conversation so abruptly the other day, after I mentioned my support for the truckers' protest in Ottawa. You know my stance on many of these issues, and up until I mentioned the truckers, you have been supportive of my choices. I want you first to think about who I am. I'm your little brother. I've been in healthcare my whole life. I've run a successful practice in the past, and I manage a healthcare business today. I'm quite aware of the many issues surrounding this protest, what has been happening over the last 2 years. What the truckers want and what I want is the end to the vaccine passports. Why? You see, when people signed up for the vaccine passport, they gave up their freedom. What? How did they give up their freedom? Well, somebody printed off a QR code and laminated it so you could carry it around with you. It was at that moment that you gave up your freedom. Because 1 year ago, and for every other year in the history of Canada, you did not have to show papers to enter anywhere. You did not have to show a piece of paper with all your information on it just to go into the Husky and sit down to have a coffee. You did not have to do that. Nobody did. You think you are free because you can go and sit in the Husky and have a coffee, but you are not really free because you must present your up-to-date papers to sit there. So now look at me and my family. Because we are not up to date with our injections, I do not have a QR code. I cannot go into a restaurant, a movie theater. I cannot go to a museum or a hockey game. And most importantly, I cannot leave the country or use a plane or a train in Canada. These are huge restrictions of my rights, and not just my rights. My entire family is affected, and my family is your family. Your great nephew, your grandson, my grandson cannot play hockey. In Canada, a 6-year-old boy is denied entrance to the arena. Your great niece cannot take figure skating lessons because she cannot enter an arena in Canada. So what am I asking you? Please, read this letter again. Call me if you don't understand any of it. Do not just trust what you are hearing on television. Trust what I am saying. Understand that we are being oppressed, and soon people may even become violent towards us. So next time you use your piece of paper to go somewhere, just think about your family and maybe mention to the manager that having to show him papers is wrong, and you are doing it only because you have been mandated to show it. He will probably agree with you that it is wrong. He may say that it is just doing his job. But just in that conversation, you have told one person that this is wrong. And over time, when enough people understand, it will end. That is why I support the peaceful truckers and the people protests that is going on in Ottawa. I hope that they can help us to get back our freedom. I hope this explains some things. So I sent that letter, and he actually called me after he read it, and we had a really good conversation. So I was really glad that I did it, that I took the time to write it, and I took the time to try to change his mind even a little bit about this situation. And I've been trying to change people's minds about it ever since. Of course, there has been some terrible changes going on in Canada with a number of bills that are going to restrict our ability to speak about many topics. And the government will decide what the topic is, and if they don't like it, they can actually just pull you right off the internet and close you down totally and completely. So I may have even crossed the line right here today. Those bills are not in law yet, but they have passed both houses of government. They've gone through the Parliament and they're gone through the Senate, so they will become law. And until a future government overrides them and changes them, we will be stuck with this. So, I started off with coffee and I talked about freedom and Canadian values. So this was a bit of a mismatch of a podcast today, but I really wanted you to get a feel for where I am and what things are about right now. I live in a great country, an incredible country, a physical country full of beauty, and there's so much joy and there's so much potential for us. And we really are on the wrong path right now, and we need to change paths. And one of the ways we have to change path is we have to go back to the past briefly. We have to deal with this problem of passports and vaccinations and the whole COVID fiasco. And we have to come to some kind of justice over it. And we have to come to some kind of an agreement that it will never happen again. And that's my hope. That's my hope for the future. That's the only hope for my grandchildren, is that this never happens again, because we were on the verge of internment camps. We were on the verge of a full-on fascist control society. We were on the verge of becoming China. And God, that just can never happen. We can just never let this great country become a open air prison. So, and I don't want to be too hard on China. I mean, China has some wonderful things about it, but the control over their people is just next level. And when I see my government emulating that, it is scary. It is terrifying to me. So if you've listened till now, you know I love you and I really appreciate you. And I thank you again for listening to the podcast. For all my listeners all around the world, this little bit of Norfolk County, this little bit of heat dome that's over us, I'm thinking about all of you and I appreciate it, each and every one of you. Take care and we'll see you NT. We'll see you next time.